These are 3 ways that being raised by emotionally immature parents is affecting our adult relationships today. And this is a topic near and dear to my heart because I am the adult child of emotionally immature parents, and I really see the impact it has had on my own life and also students who I've worked with over the last 5 years. And in today's video, we're going to look at these 3 ways. Way number 1, difficulty setting and maintaining your boundaries. The second way, it is emotional disconnection and caretaking, rescuing. And then the third way we're going to look at is repeating these old familiar relationship patterns. So a little story about me. This is actually the first YouTube video I am creating on my new channel. So it wasn't always this way. I didn't always know about this concept of emotionally immature parents. It actually wasn't until the pandemic when I was visiting one of my happy places, the local bookstore, where I stumbled across this book called Emotionally Immature Parents by Lindsay Gibson. Let me go in my suitcase and show you the book if you haven't seen it yet. 1 second. Okay, I got it. So in the bookstore, I stumbled across this book that would forever change the course of my own healing journey and my professional coaching education work that I do now. So anyways, reading this book was so insightful, so many aha moments, and it brought up a lot of difficult emotions because I realized even though my parents tried their best, well-meaning, Chinese immigrants to Canada, I'm second generation Chinese Canadian, they were emotionally immature adults and parents. So fast forward today, 2025, I actually became a published author a few years ago where I wrote this workbook called Emotionally Immature Parents, a recovery workbook for adult children. You could find the link in the show notes below. And really, this is my mission, to help adults like myself to unpack our childhood and begin connecting the dots of how the patterns and the dynamics that we grew up in our family, how it shows up today in our adult life, whether that's with your personal relationships, with your current family, chosen family, existing family, and how these patterns show up in your professional life. So all healing and transformation has to begin with number 1, being aware of these patterns. One of the ways our upbringing by emotionally immature parents impact us today is our difficulty with understanding, setting, and maintaining healthy boundaries. And that's because our parents, they might have ignored, dismissed, and even violated our boundaries starting at a very young age. And one thing that I grew up with, being in Chinese culture, is respecting, family and people that are older than you through hugs, like forced hugs. I was a very sensitive little boy. I didn't want to hug everyone. It's like so invasive. But I was made, to hug uncle, auntie, the stranger. Even though like I was shy, even though I didn't feel like it, even though there's some like family friends are a bit creepy, but I was made to hug everyone and even like let them kiss me and stuff. And oh, that was so yucky and so violating. And some signs of having poor boundaries that show up in our adult relationships is patterns of people-pleasing, overgiving, overdoing, and just feeling so much guilt when saying no. And maybe some of us, it's even just thinking about saying no already. The guilt is so strong, isn't it? And really, this comes with very heavy emotional toll. When we don't understand boundaries, we can't set them, we can't maintain them. And maybe some of you are going through these effects now. So exhaustion, burnout, resentment, and a loss of self. And I really went through all these effects especially like 4 or 5 years ago when I was struggling through medical school, didn't really learn about boundaries yet, haven't picked up a book about boundaries yet, and I was just filled with anxiety, overthinking, overwhelm, loss of self, and I was a big people pleaser. And to be honest, I would say yes to almost everything and everyone. And then I get worried about what I said yes to. I would try to find these kind of manipulative and very tricky ways to get out of what I said yes to. And then I would feel guilty about it. And I didn't really feel like proud of what I was doing either. And this brings us to the second way our upbringing with emotionally immature parents has lasting impact in our adult relationships. And that's emotional disconnection and caretaking. So here's this very strange paradox. We have become emotionally unavailable for ourselves while taking responsibility over other people's feelings, over their happiness, their sadness, their disappointments, and even taking responsibility over their behavior and their emotional reactions. A lot of us here are probably empathetic, sensitive. However, we're not empathetic. Like, we don't give ourselves the same amount of time, attention, understanding, space for our own feelings that we do for others. And really, this pattern was created in childhood with our emotionally immature parents who are inconsistent or even lacking when it comes to emotional support. And if you haven't heard about the concept, parentification, a lot of us here were parentified as young children. We were almost made to parent our parents, whether that could be you becoming a little adult, taking on responsibilities, whether it's like physical or work related, right? Working at a young age, making money for the family, supporting your family that way, or emotional caretaker. So for me, I kind of became my mom's therapist, her main confidant, and that is verging in the realms of emotional abuse. Because as young children, we were not developed enough to really take on these adult responsibilities. And some signs that this manifests in our adult life is being unable to recognize our own feelings, being able to recognize my needs versus what are your needs, and also becoming hyper vigilant, super hyper aware of other people's emotions, and once again, right, feeling like it's my job to make sure that you're happy and it's my fault if you're unhappy. And really, in my own self-discovery, emotional growth and healing journey over these last 11 years, developing emotional intelligence is so key when it comes to realizing where my emotions end and where my parents' emotions begin. And realizing that, yes, my behavior, my actions can influence their emotions, but ultimately, I'm responsible for my emotions, and you're ultimately responsible for your emotions. And that's why in my 4-step butterfly transformation method, step 2 is emotional intelligence and resilience training. It is a crucial step for us to become independent, for us to become empowered, right? For us to begin to, in a healthy way, separate so we can come closer together. And the third way that we're going to talk about here today is repeating these old, familiar relationship patterns. So living inside all of us is a wounded inner child. You might have heard trauma is stored in the body. You might have heard that We can have a biological age of 20, 30, 40, 50, 70, 80. However, our emotional age can be that of a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old. So at an unconscious level, our wounded inner child can be recreating familiar patterns, experiences, and relationship dynamics that, although they're familiar, but it's unhealthy. And we recreate this in our adult relationships, both personal and professional. So you might begin to see the repeating patterns and signs in the friendships that you attract and choose to be in. And even when it comes to dating and romantic relationships, are there similarities with the partners that you've been choosing, with the partner that you have today? Are there any similarities that your partner has with either your mom and or your dad? And in some strange ways, does being with this partner bring up similar feelings, fears, discomforts, desires that are familiar when you were a child, and even familiar and similar to your current relationship dynamic with your mom and or your dad, if you're in a relationship with them, if they're still around? And maybe there are repeating cycles of hope, fantasies, disappointments, trying to change them, fix them, while kind of losing yourself. And really, what's helped me so much is, after step 2, the emotional intelligence and resilience training, learning about emotions, having the tools and practices that work for us to regulate our emotions, to understand what these messengers are trying to tell us. Step 3 in my butterfly method is the deep inner child healing and reparenting work. So we need to become the parents for ourselves who we desperately needed as young children. And that wounded little boy, that wounded little girl living inside is still hoping and looking for such a parent. However, a lot of us are unknowingly trying to create and find that parent in our own parents today, trying to change them, trying to manipulate them, and unconsciously, a lot of us are seeking that parent guardian energy in our friendships and our romantic relationships. And even in like the boardroom, we're trying to seek this guardian parent energy in our bosses, in our manager, in our supervisor. And that is actually not it. This may be a lot for you to think about, digest, and reflect. And I want you at this moment to take a few deep breaths with me, okay? Oh gosh, okay. Sigh it out. One more. Just you being here, watching this video, learning, you are taking a step in the direction of potentially healing, transforming, and changing. Okay? It's gonna be okay. Okay? And even though it doesn't feel like it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay. And it's okay to be not okay, right? If you want to learn more about these emotionally immature reactive patterns that we might have inherited from our family, from our parents, go down in the show notes and go check out my free checklist so you can begin recognizing these patterns in yourself, in your loved ones, and maybe have other ways to respond rather than repeating these reactive patterns. Have hope, Healing is possible. I went through this journey and my students have too. And what's waiting for you on the other side of your healing journey? Transformation, right? It is a sense of who you are, right? It's being able to be in genuine, authentic relationships as yourself, right? It means knowing where you end and where someone else begins. And really, a lot of this work, it's about you stepping into your highest power. It's you becoming confident, right? Assertive and kind, almost like becoming the adult, the guardian, who we wanted as children. And a lot of this work, it's kind of becoming a safe home for yourself, right? And a lot of this work, what it means is no longer repeating these harmful patterns and having new ways to express yourself, to support each other, and for us to grow individually and together. Here are the 3 ways that being raised by emotionally immature parents still affects us as adults. So the first way is difficulty setting and maintaining boundaries. The second way is emotional disconnection, caretaking. The third way, it is, do you remember? Because I forgot. Repeating old familiar patterns. If you found this helpful, please subscribe, leave a comment. This is the first YouTube video that I've created, and I can't wait to be sharing with you more of this wisdom, this new knowledge, and I'm aiming for 2 videos every week. So please, share in the comments which of these 3 ways has been showing up in your adult life, your adult relationships the most, and I can use your encouragement and support for us to keep going in this new channel. And one last thing before I take off. Go and check out my free emotionally immature reactions checklist so you can begin becoming aware of these old, repeating, emotionally immature patterns. And I'll see you in the next video.